And Rachel Pupazzoni joins me now with an update on that situation in Paris. Rachel, Paris waking up 8 o'clock in the morning there. Any new information about numbers of dead and numbers injured?
The numbers that we're reporting of what we've been reporting for the last few hours, Kumi, at least 120 people have been killed in attacks across Paris. More than 200 people have been injured. 80 of those, we understand, very seriously injured. 8 militants have been killed. 7 of them, we understand, detonated suicide belts. The Paris prosecutor, Francois Moulin, says 6 locations were targeted. We can show you a map now. This is of Paris centre. You can see at the top there, Stade de France. Now, the French prosecutor said some people were killed there, possibly 3, clearly not giving us a definite number there. And it's also not clear whether that number is the attackers or the victims of those blasts that occurred at the football stadium there. Also at the Rue de Charonne, 18 people were killed. At Boulevard Voltaire, 1 person was killed. At Rue de la Fontaine-aux-Rois, 5 people are dead. At Rue Alibert, 14 people have been killed and many seriously injured. You can see in the centre there of that cluster of locations there, the concert hall. Now that is where a rock concert was taking place, and Milan said that the death toll there believed to be about 120, so in all a very high death toll, taking into account those numbers at the Bataclan concert venue. Now we can continue on. And it's believed to be as high as 120 at that particular location. Now, about 1,500 military were brought into the French capital as this situation unfolded to try to get on top of the situation. Now, the French president declared a state of emergency immediately after the attacks and closed the country's borders not long after.
France. L'état d'urgence, lui, sera proclamé sur l'ensemble du territoire.
The state of emergency will be applied to the whole French territory. I've also decided to close the borders.
Et en même temps que ceux qui auraient pu commettre les crimes qui sont
to make sure that those who've committed these crimes can be stopped if they are trying to leave the territory. It is a terrible event that is upon us.
That's the French president speaking in the immediate hours after these multiple attacks. Now, one of the first indications we got that something was happening was when 3 explosions rang out at the football stadium. They could clearly be heard on the pitch of the Stade de France stadium, where France was playing Germany in a football match. Now, the game a little while later was abandoned and frightened crowds ran onto the ground in panic and confusion, but they then learned that the explosions were nearby and not in the stands. Football fans showed a stunning display of unity when they left the stadium a little while later. Now, survivors of the attacks have told how they feared for their lives as they realised what was happening around them.
We were in a restaurant waiting for our food to come. We heard shots and thought it was fireworks. We decided to go and see the fireworks, but the waiters said to us, "This is not fireworks, it's gunshots, it's a terrorist attack." People started running towards us. We all hid in the restaurant's kitchen and then in the courtyard. About 5 minutes later, we went out and discovered the bodies. The police arrived. We then realised it was a terrorist attack.
Let's get some reaction now from around the world. And the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau addressed the media there, saying it's too early to jump to conclusions about what led to this.
Obviously, it is still very early moments in figuring out what is indeed happening as we speak right now on the ground in France. It's too soon to jump to any conclusions, but obviously governments have a responsibility to keep their citizens safe while defending our rights and freedoms, and that balance is something that the Canadian government and indeed all governments around the world will be focusing on. At this time, we have no information that any Canadians were either targeted or even involved as victims in these events. But obviously, there's still an awful lot to learn about what's happening in France as we speak.
The New Zealand Prime Minister John Key has condemned the attacks in Paris, labelling them a heinous act of terrorism.
It's particularly vicious in nature. If you think about the reports that we're seeing coming from the concert hall, I mean, it's utterly brutal terrorism, which, you know, clearly has been undertaken in a way to terrify people, and so it's both troubling and disturbing, and I think shows people why we have to stand up to these terrorists, because they know absolutely no bounds when it comes to humanity.
Now, the Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull is in Berlin at the moment. However, he did address the media and says freedom around the world has been attacked.
On behalf of the Australian people, I extend our deep sympathy to the people of France. Our thoughts and prayers are with them at this terrible time. But our solidarity is with them too. When the French people left the stadium after that shocking attack, they were not cowed. They sang their national anthem proudly. And that is how all free people should respond to these assaults. Freedom stands up for itself, stands up for its values in the face of terrorism. In France, in Australia, all around the world. We stand shoulder to shoulder with the people of France and with all free peoples in the battle against terrorism.
Now, the government has advised Australians who may be in Paris to stay inside their accommodation and follow the advice of local French officials. People in Paris, though, are asked to register with Australian consular officials. Now, there are two numbers for people to use. Those in Australia can call 1300 555 135. People outside of Australia, and of course those in Paris or in France, are asked to call consular officials on +612 6261 3305. And finally, solidarity has been shown around the world as news has come in today, and buildings have been lit up in the colours of the French flag. The World Trade Center in New York was lit blue, white and red in honour of the victims of the Paris attacks. The US city of San Francisco has also shown its solidarity with the French people, with the City Hall lit in the French colours, and in Canada, Toronto's CN Tower was illuminated. And Kumi, we are expecting that the sails of the Sydney Opera House will also be lit up in those three colours as Australia shows its support for the victims of these horrible attacks in Paris.
Okay, Rachel, thanks so much for all your time this afternoon. See you soon.